Genghis Khan, the founder of the Mongol Empire, was known for his ruthless military strategies and harsh methods of punishment. While the Mongols were primarily focused on conquest and military tactics, they did employ torture methods to instill fear, extract information, and punish those who resisted or betrayed them. Here are some of the torture methods associated with Genghis Khan in the Mongol forces.
Execution by boiling.
Victims were placed into large cauldrons filled with water, oil, or another liquid, which was then heated until it reached boiling point. The process was agonizingly slow, causing intense pain as the skin, muscles, and internal organs were gradually cooked. Death would typically occur due to shock, organ failure, or extreme burns. This method was not just a form of execution, but also served as a psychological tool to instill fear in those who witnessed or heard about it.
Death by crushing.
This method involved placing the victim under a heavy object, such as a large wooden board or door. The object was then gradually weighed down with increasing pressure, often by horses or by piling heavy stones. The victim would suffer severe pain as their bones and internal organs were slowly crushed. Death could be prolonged, with the victim remaining conscious until the crushing force reached a critical point. This method was particularly brutal and served as a deterrent to rebellion or betrayal.
Drawing and quartering.
This was a particularly gruesome form of execution, where the victim's limbs were tied to 4 horses. The horses were then whipped or driven in opposite directions, pulling the victim apart. The tearing of limbs from the body caused excruciating pain, often leading to death from massive blood loss, shock, or dismemberment. The process could be drawn out to increase suffering, with the horses sometimes encouraged to pull slowly or in unison to prolong the victim's agony. This method was rarely used but was highly effective in terrifying onlookers.
Impaling.
Impalement involves the use of a long, sharp stake. The victim would be placed on this stake, which was often driven through the body in a manner that could either be instantly fatal or cause prolonged suffering. The stake would sometimes be inserted through the victim's rectum or vagina and pushed through the body until it emerged through the mouth, shoulder, or chest. The process could be excruciatingly slow, depending on how the stake was positioned. Victims of impalement were often left to die slowly, sometimes over hours or days, with the stake preventing fatal blood loss, leading to a torturous death. The method served as a powerful psychological weapon, demonstrating the severe consequences of opposing Genghis Khan or defying his authority.
Starvation and thirst.
Victims were confined in small, isolated spaces with no access to food or water, leading to a slow and agonizing death from dehydration and starvation. The body would gradually shut down as it consumed its own tissues for energy, leading to extreme weakness, hallucinations, organ failure, and eventually death. This method was particularly effective for prisoners who were considered too dangerous to leave alive, but who were not immediately executed for political or strategic reasons.
Psychological torture.
The Mongols employed various forms of psychological torture to break their enemies' will to resist. This could include threats of violence against the victim's family, public executions of loved ones, or the desecration of sacred sites. The fear of impending torture or execution was often enough to cause psychological breakdowns, leading to confessions, surrender, or betrayal. The Mongols were also known for their practice of executing all the inhabitants of a city that resisted them, leaving only a few survivors to spread the tale of Mongol wrath, which in itself was a form of psychological torture for those in neighboring regions.
Mutilation.
Mutilation involved the deliberate disfigurement of the victim, such as cutting off ears, noses, tongues, or other body parts. This was used both as a punishment and as a means to mark and humiliate those who had defied Mongol rule. Victims of mutilation were often left alive, serving as a living reminder of the consequences of crossing the Mongols. The physical and psychological scars from mutilation served as a lasting deterrent to others who might consider resistance.
Suffocation.
To avoid spilling the blood of royal or noble captives, which was considered sacrilegious in some cultures, the Mongols would execute victims by suffocation. One common method was to roll the victim tightly in a carpet or heavy cloth, rendering them immobile and cutting off their air supply. In some cases, the victim would then be trampled by horses or crushed under a heavy object, adding physical trauma to the suffocation. The victim would die from asphyxiation, often after a prolonged struggle. Which of these torture methods do you think was the worst? Share your thoughts in the comments below.